Sairam students, welcome to another class of English literature. In our last class, we completed the poem A Dust of Snow, and in today's class, we'll begin with another poem, and the name of the poem is Fire and Ice. This poem is written by Robert Frost. Fire and Ice is one of Robert Frost's most popular poems. It was published in December 1920 in Harper's Magazine. This poem is also printed in his book New Hampshire, which won the Pulitzer's Prize in 1923. Basically, this prize is given to literature. It's given for journals, articles, newspapers, etc. Before we understand the poem, let us understand what is the central idea of the poem. The theme of the poem is the age-old question. And what is the question? How will this world come to an end? Whether it will end in fire or in ice. The poet decides that any of the two options would achieve its purpose sufficiently well. He shares the common belief that everything that exists will have its end too. He tries to speak about human emotions. He has compared human emotions to fire and ice. He says that if human emotions are not in control, they can tend to be destructive. So let us see what he has to say through this poem, Fire and Ice. Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. Now the poet here tries to say that there are two groups. Some say the world will end in fire, that is one group, and the other one says that the world will end in ice. Now what does he try to say? He's saying that the earth's core may get heated up so much that it will result into fire, and this fire will destroy the earth's surface. That is what one group has to say. What does the other group say? It's going to get destroyed in ice. So he says that the other group is saying that the temperature may go down to the extent that it will be very difficult for the human beings to survive. So two groups, one of them say that the world will end in fire and the other has to say in ice. But students, this poem, these words, fire and ice, he has not taken the literal meaning of the words fire and ice. He has tried to give some symbol to the word fire and to ice. What is that? He says fire denotes desire. It denotes wants, passion, jealousy, lust and greed. On the other hand, he says that ice denotes hatred and despise. So fire and ice being two vices in which the speaker discusses could possibly lead to the end of our existence. So again, I'm telling you, the poet has not taken the literal meaning of the words fire and ice. He's explained this poem metaphorically. He has given symbols to fire as fire and ice. Let us proceed further. The first stanza of the poem. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. I've explained it to you before. He says there are two groups. One say it'll end in fire, and the other one says the world will end in ice. From what I have tasted of desire. I told you, what is desire for the poet? Desire for having power by all wrong means. Desire for wealth, again by all wrong means. Do you think it is good, students? No. It will take us only to destruction. Wants. Human wants keep multiplying. One want gets satisfied, the other one crops in. Okay, so what's happening over here? The human wants are multiplying. Jealousy. When a person is jealous of the other person, of the fellow men, maybe the person is smart enough, good enough, but will that jealousy take him anywhere? No. Greed, lust, all these vices will only take us towards destruction. So he says, from what I have tasted of desire, from what I have experienced of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. Okay, so what is desire? Desire is a strong feeling of wanting to have something. When you're desperate to have something, that is desire. What is favor? Favor here is approval or support. So he says, from what I have experienced of desire, I support the group who favor fire. Clear? Let's proceed further. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. He is not waving off the first option, the option of fire. He is not waving it off. But what is he saying instead? If it had to perish twice, what is this it? It means the world. If this earth could be perished twice, he thinks that there is enough of hate. Let me explain to you what hate is. Now, poet has compared ice to hatred. What is ice, students? Ice is something that is cold. It has no warmth in it. Also, when we hate someone, we don't have warmth for that person in our heart. Okay, so he says, if it had to perish twice, if this earth, if this world had to perish twice, perish means die. I think I know enough of hate. Hatred. Hatred for religion. What happens when there is hatred for two religions? Terrorist attacks, which is destroying the world around. We have witnessed so many terrorist attacks, haven't we? When I say hatred for color, I'm speaking about racism between the blacks and the whites. When I say hatred for gender, men and women. So will this hatred take us anywhere? Definitely not. Okay, we need to live in this world in love. There should be love between us. That warmth should be there, brotherhood. So he says there is enough of hate. There are various reasons that can destroy this earth. To say that for destruction, ice is also great. There's a lot of hatred around. And this hatred would be enough to destroy the world. And that would be suffice. That would suffice. Suffice here mean enough, adequate. So the hatred is adequate, and with that hatred we can destroy the world around us. I hope I am clear with the poem, students. So the poet tries to tell us that the world will come to an end either by fire or in ice. Okay, and he has not used a literal meaning but given symbols to them. Proceeding further with the poem, the literary devices. Now, the rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme followed by the entire poem is AB, AAB, CB, CB. Let me explain this to you. How do we identify the rhyming words? Words that end with similar sound. Look over here. Fire. Desire. Again we have the word fire. So they sound similar. So let us denote them with alphabet A. Okay? Moving on to the next word, ice. We have ice here. Clear? In our next stanza, we again have twice, we have ice, and we have suffice. So in our first stanza, we had the word ice. Second stanza, we have twice, ice, and suffice. They sound similar. So let us denote them by the alphabet B. Next we have the words hate and great. They sound similar. So let's denote them alphabet C. So the rhyme scheme of the entire poem is AB, AAB, CB, CB. A was given to the words sounding similar to fire. B was given sounding similar to ice. And then we had C for hate and great. Clear, students? Great. Moving on, we have the next literary device as enjambment. Now, what's an enjambment? Enjambment is there's a continuous flow in the poem. One line gets continued to the next line without any punctuation mark. Let me show this to you. Look at these lines. I know enough of hate to say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. These lines over here, students, they are continuous. Okay, it gets continued from one line to another. Okay, there are no punctuation marks used anywhere in the middle. Only one, that too at the end. Next, look at these two lines. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. Again, the line is getting continued to the next line without a punctuation mark. Clear? That is called as enjambment. Next literary device is Assonance. Now what's an assonance, students? When the sound of the vowel gets repeated, it is called as assonance. Pay attention to this line. I hold with those who favor fire. So the sound of O is getting repeated. Look here. Hold, those, favor. When the sound of the vowel gets repeated in two or more words in the same line, it is called as assonance. This is one example for you, students. You will jot down the other examples of assonance from the poem. Clear? Proceeding further. Alliteration. What is alliteration? It's the repetition of consonant sounds in the same line. Look over here. I hold with those who favor fire. So, sound of F and sound of F in fire. So, favor, fire. The sound of F is getting repeated. Look over here. Look at this sentence. Some say the world will end in fire. The sound of W. World will. Sound of W is getting repeated. This is another example of alliteration. Now students, you will again jot down the other lines that have their figures of speech as alliteration. Proceeding further with our literary devices. The next literary device that's a figures of speech is personification. Now why this is personification? What is personification? It is to give human qualities to inanimate objects, non-living objects. When you give them human qualities, that figures of speech is personification. In this poem, fire and ice, they are capable of destruction. Fire and ice, they are two inanimate objects, correct? They are capable of destruction. How? The poet personifies fire and ice by giving them a mind, human mind, which is capable of destroying almost anything. So here, fire and ice, okay, they are given human quality of having mind, using their brains for destroying things around them. Next, imagery. What's an imagery? Now, imagery is another figures of speech. With this, what happens is, students, you can create images in your mind. Explain you the 5 sensory organs first. We have eyes for sight, nose for smell, tongue for taste, ears for sound, and then we have this touch. Okay. Now when we create images in our mind using these sensory organs, that figures of speech is called as imagery. Look at the first one. When I say, the tiny red ant climbed up the broken twig. You must have seen a tiny red ant, correct? You must have seen a broken twig. The moment I read this, you could have managed to create an image of a tiny ant climbing up the broken twig. So with the help of your eyes, whatever you have seen, you could create images, right? Moving on. Smell. The sweet smell of freshly baked apple filled the air with the help of nose. Okay, you can smell with the help of nose. So you must have smelled it before. But when I told you, when I just read the sweet smell of freshly baked apple, you could recollect the smell of freshly baked apple. Okay, again you could create an image in your mind. Next is we have taste. One bite of the sour lemon caused my lips to pucker. Now, all of us have tasted lemon, correct? What feeling do we get? When I read it just now, you must have got the same feeling because you have tasted that with the help of your tongue. You could imagine what you could have felt. Clear? Next, sound. The car squeaked every time I hit a bump in the road. So you can hear sounds with the help of your ears. Okay. So the squeaking of the car, you must have heard it before. Now when I read it, you could understand what that sound is all about. You could relate to it. Clear? And last is touch. The sharp edge of the paper cut my finger and made it sting. All of us must have cut our fingers with paper while turning the page when we are reading books or any time. So you can feel that pain. Why? Because now when I just read it, you must have experienced the same. Okay, you could have understood what I am trying to tell you about. Clear? So when we create images in our mind using our sensory organs, that figures of speech is an imagery. Look here. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say the world will end in fire. So you must have imagined fire and the world ending in it. Next, to say that for destruction, ice is also great. So you can create images for these two lines and you can see the world destroying in it. So these two lines are imagery. Next is anaphora. What's an anaphora? It refers to the repetition of a word or an expression in the first part of some verses. For example, in this line, some say the world will end in fire. Look at this. These two words. Some say. Look at these two words again. Some say. Correct? We have two words. The first one is some say and second one here again is some say. And in these two lines at the very beginning we have the words repeated. Okay? So when a word or an expression gets repeated in the first part of the verse, some say over here is the first part, some say again over here second line is in the first part. So this figures of speech is anaphora. Next, symbolism. Remember at the beginning of the poem itself I told you, fire is a symbol of desire and ice is the symbol of hatred. Okay, so this in symbolism what happens? Symbolism is a use of symbols to signify ideas and qualities by giving them symbolic meanings different from their literal meaning. Fire and ice. The poet has not used the literal meaning of the words fire and ice. He has given symbols. Fire is a symbol of desire, symbol of greed, lust, passion, wants. Okay? And similarly, ice symbolizes hatred, symbolizes despise. So, the another literary device, another figure of speech is symbolism. So with this, we come to an end of your poem, students. What have we learned? Just a quick recap. We have seen that the poet discusses that there are two groups. One say that the world will end in fire and the other one in ice. But the poet is not using the literal meaning. He is metaphorically explaining it to us. He says that fire, it's a symbol for greed, lust, wants, etc. And ice is a symbol of hatred and despise. He says there is enough of fire, enough of ice around, that the world will come to an end because of these two vices. I hope I am clear with this poem. Now I have value points. Again, value points are important points of the poem. A quick go through. These are the value points. These value points, they'll help you when you summarize or when you're trying to learn by heart your answers. Okay. So students, along with this video link, you have one more link wherein you have some set of questions waiting for you. Answer them. Click on the submit button. Also, if you remember, while discussing the figures of speech, I told you to finish off the remaining figures of speech. For example, we had assonance, we had alliteration. You'll find few more examples from the poem and jot them down and submit when the school reopens. Till then, you will take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. Sai Ram.